Mr Finn.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, allow me to congratulate you formally on your election as President. Or you've already shown, I think, a capacity to be an exceptionally good President, and I anticipate that that will continue. So I congratulate you on that. I would also like to express my loyalty to Her Majesty. She is an extraordinary individual, an amazing leader, and I can't help but think how fortunate we are to have as our monarch such an amazing human being. For us to have lived at a time when Her Majesty has been on the throne, and I have to say that she has been on the throne for the entirety of my life, as I'm sure most members will have had a similar experience, and when that day comes, and hopefully it's a long way away, when she's no longer there, it will be a very strange feeling indeed. But I would like to express my loyalty to Her Majesty and my support for the continuation of Australia's constitutional monarchy, because the great thing about the constitutional monarchy is that it's the system that counts. It's not the personalities. We are very fortunate indeed to have had, as I said, such a marvellous Queen. But when we have a king, then the system won't change. We will still have that safety net, and let's face it, the monarch, whether it be the monarch in person or monarch as representative, is in fact the umpire in this game that we call of government here in Australia. Despite the fact that we might not like umpires from time to time, and I may have expressed my views on that rather loudly at the MCG just last week, we have to have them. We have to have umpires, and remove the governor, remove the Governor-General, remove the Queen or the King, and our system breaks down. And we've already seen in the United States what happens when you don't have that independent umpire. We do have the shutdown of government on a pretty regular basis, actually, and I anticipate there will be another one pretty soon. So I think we should be pretty happy with our constitutional monarchy, and we should be very pleased that Her Majesty and those who represent her do an outstanding job in their roles. I would also like to thank the people of Melbourne's West, who have re-elected me to represent them for another term. I get around the West, I talk to a lot of people, and it doesn't matter who they vote for. It doesn't matter what their background is. It doesn't whether it be a religious background or an ethnic background or whatever it may be. I'm happy to go out and talk to everybody. I'm not in my office much because that's not where people are. I prefer to get out, and I prefer to talk to people and to find out what their issues are, to find out what their problems are. And indeed, in the West, there are quite a few issues that need to be addressed. Melbourne's West has been my home for almost my entire adult life, so it is something that I have an area that I have a real commitment to, not just a political commitment, but a deep personal commitment as well. When I see the traffic problems, for example, that are a nightmare for hundreds of thousands of motorists in the West every day. It angers me. It angers me when I think that the East-West Link, if it had not been scrapped at the cost of $1.3 billion by the current Premier, the East-West Link would probably now be half complete, and we would have a solution to the to the traffic problems, the woeful traffic problems that we suffer in Melbourne's west. And that's just one. That is just one of a number of issues that I will be raising in this particular Parliament, in the 59th Parliament, and I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful. Not necessarily confident, but I'm very hopeful that the government might actually listen to me on this occasion. It concerns me, Mr. President, that the hard-working people of Melbourne's west are about to be slugged by massive taxes. The fact that the Premier and the Treasurer postponed the budget until after the federal election tells me that something stinks in Spring Street. Something stinks in Treasury. And it concerns me that there is something coming that is going to make us all very, very unhappy. Now, already today, the Premier has refused to rule out death duties. Now, this is the most odious of taxes, a tax on dead people. I mean, you pay tax all your life. You work hard, you pay your tax, you build up your property, your home, and your worldly chattels. You go to your Creator at the end of your life, and the government says, "I'll have some of that, thank you very much." That, let me tell you, Mr. President, is theft. That is theft, straight out. So for the Premier to be even contemplating that is something that concerns me very, very much indeed. If the Premier were to introduce, and the Treasurer, of course, were to introduce death duties in the state, the exodus to the New South Wales and South Australian border would be something that would have to be seen to be believed. Thousands and thousands, if not millions, of people would be out of Victoria before Daniel Andrews got hold of their money. But there's no doubt there are tax increases, there are tax slugs on the way. You can't spend as much as this government spends without taxing. Government has to get the money from somewhere, and the only place that government can get the money from is people, is workers, is taxpayers. It's the only place that they can get the money from. So when you see the government get up and say, "We have spent $22 billion on this," or "We've spent $15 billion on this," or "We've spent $45 billion on this," you know who's really spent that money? You know where that money comes from? That money is coming from the pockets of hard-working Victorians, of people who go out there and work every day, whether they be in business, whether they be employees, whatever they may be. They work hard, they pay their tax, and it's taken by a government and spent on their behalf. So when a government tells you how much they've spent, and interestingly, we have a government that does tell us quite frequently how much they've spent, but they never actually tell us what they got for it. This is a government that doesn't understand value for money. It only understands the big figure at the end of how much they spent. I want to know what I get for it. You know, I could go into a supermarket or a shopping centre and spend up big too, but I want to know what I'm getting for it. This government doesn't understand that, and I think that is a real concern. That is a real concern. What is also a real concern is what may happen in this country in just a couple of weeks' time, 2.5 weeks' time, in fact. If Bill Shorten is elected Prime Minister of this country, and you know you've got to face facts, there is a very real chance of that, we are in a lot of trouble. This nation is in a lot of trouble. If you thought that Kevin Rudd wrought disaster on this nation when he was elected PM, wait until you see what Bill Shorten will do if he is PM. His climate change policies alone will sink the economy without trace. without trace. There is no way that that business will stick around to cop the sort of policies that this Labor opposition is proposing in government federally, and it's going to hit Victoria hard. It will hit Victoria hard, and it will hit the western suburbs hard. And that's what concerns me. The interesting thing about the Labor Party is that when they stuff up economically, which they inevitably do, and we all know the cycle. The Liberals are in, and the Liberals fix the economy. The Liberals build up the money. Labor comes in, they spend it all, they send the state broke, they put us in all manner of strife. Then the Liberals have to come back in and fix it, and then a few years later, and on it goes. So we know the cycle. We know the cycle. But what concerns me is that the mess that Labor will produce if Bill Shorten becomes Prime Minister will hit those who are probably Labor voters more than anybody else. There is a degree of silliness in the whole thing when you look at it in that way, because it will hit ordinary workers. Labor will hit ordinary workers, as they always do. It will hit people in factories. It will hit people who are perhaps at the lower end of the wage scale, because we are going to see huge numbers of businesses get up and leave Australia. We are going to see other businesses that can't afford to leave Australia go broke, go to the wall, just close up. We are going to see, if Bill Shorten becomes Prime Minister of this nation, we are going to see massive unemployment. We are going to see massive recession, if not depression. And that's just as a result of one policy that he can't even tell us how much is going to cost. He cannot tell us how much his climate change policy is actually going to cost. Well, I know how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost the Australian economy everything. It will take us generations to recover from the policy that is being proposed by federal Labor at this minute, and it's going to hit Victoria hard. It's going to hit Victoria very hard. And, you know, the insanity of all this is that this policy won't achieve a damn thing. Apart from the human misery, the economic hardship, the social upheaval that will occur, apart from that, this policy will not solve a single thing. You know, if every emission in Australia, if every car, every factory, every bus, if everything just closed down tomorrow and stayed closed, it would make no difference at all to the climate. It would make no difference at all to world emissions. I mean, Australia contributes around about 1%, maybe a little bit more, of the world's emissions. If we stopped them all tomorrow, it would make no difference at all. So here we have a political party, the Australian Labor Party, that is proposing they go into government, they completely destroy the economy, they flatten business for left, right and centre, they put people out of work, put people out of work in their tens or hundreds of thousands, all for nothing. All for nothing. It makes no sense at all. It makes no sense at all. And that is, well, look, if you know, a few members are scoffing over there, but the fact of the matter is, and if I come back here in a couple of years and say I told you so, they won't be able to say too much at all, because indeed what I'm saying is quite will be in fact quite prophetic if you look back on it. Because what is being proposed at the moment, I regard as very scary. It is a real threat to the welfare, the future welfare of the nation, and is something that does give me enormous concern. I'm delighted to be Shadow Assistant Small Business Minister, because small business is an area that I am passionate about, and I'm very happy to be working with Michael O'Brien, the Opposition Leader, and Shadow Small Business Minister on this in this particular area. And I'll be visiting every part of the state over the next couple of years to speak to small business people as I say, right across Victoria, and I'm very much looking forward to that indeed. I'm hoping that we achieve a lot in this parliament, but maybe when you look what this government puts forward, maybe it's best that we don't achieve anything at all.